Hello, my name is Joseph Carlson. This is episode 38 of The Grief of Politics. I am joined once again by Avin Carroll. Avin, how you doing?
I am doing good. Good to see you, sir.
Yeah, so we always try to come up with subjects and like, what are we going to talk about this month and what are we going to talk about this month? But it's an election year. And so you and I have had many off-board conversations last night. We should have just recorded that and posted that as an audio episode because we talked for about an hour. You didn't leave the office. Your wife texts you, where are you? Um, I really think, there's so much going on. I don't know if we could just do a general topic this week. And so I gave you articles from AP News that go over Joe Biden, and I gave you a thing from NBC News, like a roundup of each candidate. Like here's the info we have on Trump with a bunch of news articles. Here's the info we have on Biden with a bunch of news articles. And, you know, let's just start out with something that we said many episodes ago when we talked about the presidential election, about how this just is not exciting anymore. The two candidates are boring, and we're either tired of one of them. One of them is tired. The other one, like, it's just not, like you always said, this isn't ideal. And just as time marches on, and I'm reading more and more stories about these candidates, I'm just, there's like a malaise, like an apathy that sets in, and it's getting to the point where I'm just like, ugh. Oh, you're muted. You muted yourself. Yeah, I don't know what just happened.
I did mute myself.
What?
Hey,
Why
there
did
we
you
go.
do that? No, okay. Ah,
Hey,
technology,
everybody.
everybody.
I'm back.
You back?
Yeah. So, I mean, no one really wants this election except MAGA Republicans. All the other Republicans, all the independents,
Mm-hmm.
and the vast majority of Democrats
Mm-hmm.
do not want these candidates as the candidates we're voting for.
Yeah.
Is there a chance that Biden may get taken off the ballot? It's possible. Is there a chance Trump doesn't end up the nominee? Not likely.
Right.
It is
Yeah.
possible. He might get convicted in one of these things, and it might be really, really bad. And the evidence that actually comes out might actually be damning because Republicans might actually finally hear what's happened. You and I privately talked about an article I read a little bit ago that talked about Republicans' awareness of the charges against Trump, and it's something like 73% or 67%. It's an incredibly high percentage of Republicans are not aware of the majority of the actual charges against Trump. They're only aware that
Yeah.
he's in court,
Yeah.
and they're only hearing his narrative, which
Mhm.
is this is a witch hunt. They're out to
Mhm.
get me,
Yeah.
because none of them want to actually dig into the facts because they've been told it's a lie.
Yeah. I think the few people, conservatives that I've talked to about it, when you actually bring up what the charges are, they're the few that I've talked to are amenable to at least talking about it because, like you said, they're not aware. And if you're like, no, there's a national security problem, they're like, what? Like
Yeah.
they,
Like he literally sat down with. There's an audio recording of him sitting down with a reporter saying, "I'm not even supposed to show this to you.
yeah, yeah,
Top
yeah.
secret government documents."
Well, again, we talked privately last night, and those photos were released of when the FBI went in to get the documents and they took photos of boxes in the bathroom. A picture
Hmm.
speaks a thousand words. You see boxes upon boxes. I think there was at least 10 boxes in that bathroom of documents.
Yeah,
It's like, what are these doing here? It's like the
right.
FBI didn't move those there. And, there's just so much evidence. Another thing that he's going with is the immunity thing. The lower court
Yeah,
and a 3-0 that I understand unanimous opinion on Trump said that he is not
the D.C.
immune.
Circuit Court of Appeals.
Right. It was 3-0 though, right? There wasn't a dissenting
Right.
voice. And I haven't
No.
I haven't read the thing. I think it was 50 some odd pages, but all the scuttlebutt I've heard about it in reporting I've heard about it said it took them so long because they tried to make it as clear as possible. Like you do not need a legal degree to read this and go, "Wow,
Right.
he
They
is
wanted it
not."
to be as clear as possible. They wanted it to be as airtight as possible.
Uh-huh.
And I really honestly think it is their hope because they gave it such a short window for Trump to actually appeal it.
Right.
I really think it is their hope that the Supreme Court will just let it lie.
Well, that was one of the
Uh,
articles
we'll
actually.
see if it happens. It's not likely.
Yeah, I sent you an article by it was by NBC News. It was in this thing on Trump that let's see. Trump opts against Supreme Court appeal on civil immunity. Uh
Civil immunity. This isn't
uh
criminal immunity.
yeah,
Civil immunity.
yeah. He said it can move forward in district courts. although he can still mount an immunity defense. But this was written. This is from NBC again. It was written. When did it come out? It was by Lawrence Hurley. It came out on February 16th, so not yesterday. So that's not that long ago.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing with Trump, and we've talked about this offline, but even conservatives, the more if he gets convicted, his approval rating drops. Independents will vote against.
Well, his support drops. I don't want to say his approval rating drops. His approval rating's already in the garbage can. The irony of it all is his approval rating is actually higher than Biden's.
Oh yeah, Biden's
Which
like lower than Carter. They said Carter when Carter was the lowest, he was like at 37, and that was the lowest. And Biden's at 33 or 30, whatever poll you read, he's in the low 30s basically. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So it's again, I think it's Trump having the 4 indictments, the 91 charges, all that kind of stuff. That is, and I will say like this idea of I've seen many conservatives kind of brush off when I've seen progressives argue, well, he's a threat to democracy, and conservatives kind of brush that off. I've seen many people on the right on Fox News and whatever kind of, and it's like, but like we all saw January 6th, right? Like,
Except for the conservative narrative on what happened on January 6th. And
that it was Antifa.
Many of the Fox News hosts and most of what people on the right are consuming is that it was not an insurrection.
Right.
It was a protest. Some people went a little too far, but they were just trying to protect the integrity of the election.
Yeah, and those were FBI plants, right? Or Antifa or something.
There's also the FBI plants, the Antifa plants, right? Like that's none of the maybe not mainstream, but most of the conservative narrative that I've seen blows off the insurrection idea of January 6th.
Yeah.
Which is funny because even Trump has said insurrection, referring to January 6th in his own speeches.
Yeah. Like it's, and the many intelligent people have been saying, what we saw on January 6th was like a trial run, whatever.
When you say intelligent, you mean like people in the intelligence communities or people of high intelligence?
Like lawyers and things that are like looking at all this saying, well, even on the right, they're saying like, it seems like he's really testing what he can do even within his inner circle. And that goes to like the fake electors. And so there's a fear that he will be more savvy the second time and he will install people like those. Most of the election deniers lost in the lower down ballot votes for like the I can't think, all of a sudden the name escaped me, like not the treasurer but like the whoever on the down ballot that like the auditors basically that oversee the elections. Most of those people that were running that were aligned with Trump, like what we consider like MAGA, they lost. Many of them lost. But the idea is he still going to try a legal thing? The thing is, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? He's already tried these things once, like you said, there's a recording. We're going to do this, there was a noose. People were going to hang Pence. Pence was like, I can't do that. He even had a meeting, Trump's own lawyers have flipped on him. They've kept incredible notes because they're like,
There's a conservative narrative that Pence could have done it. And he has every right to do it because when Nixon was vice president, he didn't certify the votes for Hawaii, except for if you look at that, it's because Hawaii counted the wrong votes and asked them to not certify those votes.
Like hang on a second, we have to double check before you say yes or
right. We sent you the wrong numbers.
It's our
Don't
fault.
Certify those.
It's our fault. Let us double check this and make sure that everything's working out.
Right.
And it's it's one of those things where you're just like, I don't want to. I don't want to say that like, the Republic will fall and all that, but I don't want to go. I just don't want another 4 years of that build up. And, it is tiring. And I understand why people voted for Biden in 2016. I mean, that's part of the reason I voted for him is like,
2020.
Yeah, sorry. 2020. I don't even 2016. Anyway, I don't think I voted for Trump in 2016, but, it's just this idea of like, just reading about his legal problems, like almost every week, it seemed like, it was just so tiring. And now we're getting into that with Biden with the Middle East. We talked about it last night. The idea that there's a lot of people that have a lot of misgivings about the kind of like passive way that Biden is just allowing things to happen in the Middle East. And like I said, you can't just give someone a stern letter and say, we're very disappointed with the way Israel is doing things. It's like you need to take more firm a hand. And there's obviously, like we talked about it offline, but in Dearborn, Michigan, there's a big Muslim population. Biden won on the margins, and now the mayor there flat out said, I think they met with him later, but initially, like a month ago or a few weeks ago, he said, I'm not meeting with his people. Like what are they going to say to me or say to my constituents? They're not going to be able to say anything to make, the family members that these people have lost in our communities come back. And so you're gonna come to me and say, well, Donald Trump's this existential threat. Biden's the lesser of two evils. Like, is he? Because these people, family members, are directly impacted by your actions, and these people are dead. So you talk about an existential threat, but this is a real threat that you are posing to my constituents. So, it's
and you mentioned last night, though, there's the counter argument in that podcast you did with Sam Cedar that you listened to.
Yeah, Majority Report.
Where he brought up to a Muslim American who's
he was Palestinian.
Palestinian.
He lived in the West Bank. I could probably link it in the show notes. It was a good 20-minute call where him and Sam Cedar and Emma Vigeland like talked to him, and he said, Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, and like you said, Sam Cedar brought up with him like, yeah, but Trump directly did things that harmed Muslim Americans too. So like, which one is worse?
Yeah, and he said several times, he said, I can't tell you, this is your own like moral, like I can't tell you how to vote, but let me just give you some plus and minuses on both sides. Trump has kind of kowtowed to Netanyahu, moved the embassy. That upset a lot of people. It just seems like, imagine Trump speaking very boldly, saying, I can fix this, and then nothing really happens. And then Biden is really not saying anything, but doing certain things that show like where his allegiance is and things like that. And so it's, and I did like it. And the guy just said, it's really hard. And it is that thing of like, the protest vote, the idea that you're throwing your vote away. I still am really on the fence about that because I feel like, we kind of box ourselves into a corner where it's like, well, again, we got to do the lesser of two evils. And I think that's
and it's been that way for
years.
Probably 30 years.
Yeah, and it's a terrible it's a terrible situation when you can't,
The last time we had an election where people really probably got excited and really stood behind their candidate was 2016 with Trump, because he did mobilize a lot of independents and a lot of conservatives.
Yep.
He was an unknown. People were like, well, we'll see what happens. We saw what happened.
Yeah.
And the people that supported him, he lost a lot of supporters, a lot of independents that took a chance have totally turned their back on Trump.
There's nothing to do with there's so many of those.
A lot of people doubled down and really dug in their heels on Trump. And then you have Obama, and Obama did the same thing, right? Like he really excited and brought a lot of voters in the first term.
Wasn't his thing, yes, we can? That was his whole campaign slogan, yes, we can. There something to do with hope in there, too. I think there was another one. I think re-election was something about hope. Together we can hope or something. Anyway.
I don't know. Hope. There was the hope poster. It was just hope.
Yeah, there was that, too, yeah.
Which, right, like there's a lot of cool things that came out of that. There's also a lot of bad things that came out of that. The biggest, of course, right, is we finally proved, like, yeah, we can elect a black president in the United States of America.
Yeah.
We can actually do that, right? Like, things are better. The narrative wants to be that America's as racist as it's ever been, and, blacks are being murdered in the streets by whites, and no one's doing anything, right? But admitting that's not what you're actually hearing in the news, but it has that feel like it
depends on what channel you're listening to. There is certain networks out there that is the narrative of, look at the, Trump even came down off the courtroom, one of his things that says, why are they going after me? There's murders happening right over there, right out in the street. He said, and it's like, you mean like right now? Like somebody should get on that, somebody should like turn around and go arrest those people. Like to me. But, yeah, go ahead.
The The point being, though, right? Like things are better. We are moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, our systems work. I think it was you who brought up you would listen to a podcast or read an article that talked about this basic viewpoint that day in day out the government keeps running.
Oh yeah, well
The majority of government.
that was Jon Stewart when he came back to the Daily Show. Of like that was
Oh
like
yeah,
that was
okay.
like the end of his monologue, basically saying, to work in government and have real change is kind of a lunch pail job, day in day out. You have to punch in, and all you really hope for is progress. And
Right.
so,
And
yeah,
that is the reality of it, right? Like our systems are in place. Donald Trump isn't an existential threat to our country like people think. The more he tries to grasp for power, the more he's going to get fought back against.
yeah,
He will, if he wins the election, he will probably go in with a lame duck Congress. He will probably have, he won't have control of the Senate almost guaranteed. They're
yeah,
too close and they're
yeah,
moving against him.
mm-hmm.
Not the Senate itself, but the electorate
Right,
in the Senate. And he'll probably lose the House.
right,
Most likely, if not in 2024 and 2026, he'll lose the House. It'll flip.
right, yeah.
So all he can do is executive orders, and if his executive orders go off the wall, he's going to get blocked by Congress again.
Yeah.
You can only do so much in that.
That's that's one thing I
he's
like.
not going to tear our democracy apart like people say. Yeah, he said he's going to be a dictator on the first day. Well, he very well might be. But you know what? Congress will check him. He can only do so much with executive orders.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, that's true. And I mean, obviously, speaking of Biden, it's just one of those things where it's, for a while.
And that's the other end of it. To all my conservative friends, the same thing stands true for Biden.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, Biden has been slipping up more. I think one thing that is being pointed out a little bit, or needs to be pointed out more, is like Trump is also slipping. He's confusing people. He confused Nikki Haley for Nancy Pelosi. He said, I mean, it was hyperbolic, but he basically said, if I lose the election, Pennsylvania will no longer exist, something like that at a rally. He also said that Biden will get us into World War II, which I know Biden is old, but that is just a weird faux pas even for Trump to say that. It's like all this stuff of like, well, you're not doing well either. And, Biden's had press conferences where he confused the leader of Mexico and Egypt, I believe. He had that massive pause he couldn't think of, and now I can't think of them. Hamas, he couldn't think of that word. Somebody had to tell him that. And there was that recent documents case, his documents case, because he had documents, Biden had documents, and basically the attorney was like,
special counsel.
Yeah, the special, was like, well, he's a doddering old man, and we'll go easy on him. And but he seems to have.
No. That wasn't his argument. His argument was that he was a likable, forgetful old man that a jury would likely be kind to, and so it wasn't worth pursuing prosecution.
Which, by the way,
also he was very cooperative.
Yeah,
which would also garner some.
And what he didn't rise to the level of illegality. They just said, hey, was what he did wrong? Yes. Was it illegal? No.
But double standards, and that is a super easy one to put the double standards narrative on. That actually really helps Trump's argument that these are politically motivated charges that have no merit. And I hate to say this, but like media, and largely because conservatives aren't following any mainstream media that would report it, and our government as a whole is doing a really terrible job of actually painting the picture of what Trump really did. Like no one's actually painting at the fact that like he intentionally went out of his way to hide these documents. He knew he had them. This wasn't negligence or carelessness. He went out of his way to hide those documents.
Yeah, he had them moved.
Keep them from the government.
Yeah.
He hired or didn't hire. He directed his IT person to delete the video footage.
Yeah.
Like he 100% knew what he had because we have the recording of him telling someone, I could have declassified these when I was president, but now I can't, so I shouldn't even be showing this to you. Well, so that whole argument falls flat on its face.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the documents case is the case that's going to kill Trump. If Cannon can just let it move forward. Now, just a couple of days ago, she did put a block on a motion that the Trump legal team in that case tried to stall by
Yeah.
asking for a delay on pretrial
Yeah.
motions.
Yeah.
And she basically said, no, we're moving forward with
Yeah.
our currently set
What I
court date,
yeah, what I
which
think
is in May.
Yeah, what I think's really crazy about all that is you have hardened like conservative lawyers saying, I don't even know what she's doing. Why is she reading this legal like this isn't, they're giving them every chance basically to like you said, the only
Yeah.
thing they haven't been able to do is delay. Um, getting back to
Well, and
Biden,
they have been able to delay. She just held back on this
this
particular vote.
this one she was like, now that's too far. Um, One thing I will say, uh, with Biden, he will be the oldest,
If
serving.
Trump wins,
Yeah, yeah,
it if Trump wins, he'll be the oldest incoming president in history, and if Biden wins, he'll be the oldest incoming president in
yeah,
history. Biden is older than Trump,
yeah.
but like,
They
I
could
mean,
have. Somebody made the joke they could have
holy
went to.
freaking cows!
They could have went to high school together, basically. But Jon Stewart did make that joke that like they were the oldest serving presidents last time, and this time they will also be. They'll break their own record. Basically, was the thing of like, you know, and it's. I mean, it's so frustrating. And I mean, the thing with Biden is, it's like, I mean, I don't want to say anything bad, but like, just retire, man. Like, just it's okay. Like, you did the thing.
I
You
don't know what it is with the Democratic Party. I mean, actually, Republicans have done it too, right? Like Strom Thurmond, but like Dianne
Yeah, he was
Feinstein,
like 90
Chuck
something.
Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, like, oh my God, it's like the geriatric ward.
Yeah. Well, breaking
Well, I
points.
shouldn't say that, right? Because they're actually, you know, Schumer and Pelosi are actually pretty dang sharp. I shouldn't be that cruel. And,
Yeah.
Biden,
McConnell's had his moments though. We've all seen the video of him.
McConnell,
Yeah.
right? There's another one,
Yeah.
right? Like a Republican side of it.
Yeah, it's like,
Holy cow.
yeah.
Like, and what do we have? Nikki Haley being like, yeah, we should put age limits, at least cognition tests over 75.
Haley, it's crazy. Ugh, I don't, I don't, what time, just as an aside, what time, if you placed, even in Nevada, if you placed below none of the above, you see those results. What time do you wake up in the morning and when do you start drinking? That's what I want to know. Is when do you not roll out of bed till like 1 and just say, today's a wash, guys. Let's just all go home and try to regroup on a Wednesday or like I can't. Man,
I
Nikki
mean,
Haley.
uh, I said this to you before, right? From a strategic standpoint, I wouldn't drop out if I were her. As long as I'm still scoring like above 20s in any of the states I'm running in, I'm going to stay in until the convention. As
Yeah.
long as I'm still taking a large percentage of votes,
Right.
I'm going to stick in until the convention. And the reason I'm going to do that is because there is a very real possibility that Trump becomes ineligible.
Right. Right. Yeah.
He will get convicted of a felony, and even though Republicans may love him, they're going to be like, "There's no way he's going to win as a convicted felon."
Yeah, because
we can't put this man forward because no independent's going to vote for him anymore, and we're going to lose 10-20% of our own voters.
yeah, and
We
they
have to pull him.
and there's been many polls, and you and I have talked about it before. His base isn't growing, so even though the base will show up for him, you need to get more people in to that
Right.
base. And so I mean, have you thought about voting wise, like what you're gonna do? Because I honestly don't know what I'm gonna do. I mean, things could obviously change, but right now I'm like, well, I guess we'll see because you know, one's out just because of the whole January 6th thing, and the other one might be out because of the Middle East. Like it's I'm just waiting to see how that shakes out, really, how if he's able to somehow get some peace talks or something going. So I mean, I don't know how that's gonna go for. I mean, have you thought about
Yeah,
it?
I don't. There's no way I'm voting for Biden, and there's no way I'm voting for Trump.
Yeah.
And I have no idea who the Libertarian candidate is because that's where I voted the last 3 elections.
Yeah, they're kind of in a little bit of a. You usually hear something about them this time. Even I've heard of some Democratic candidates. Obviously, there was the Republican debate, so you saw all the Republican candidates come up. Chris Christie's out, Vivek's out, DeSantis is out. On the Democratic side, there was kind of people in the background, but even Dean Phillips brought it up. He's running. He brought up the fact that the DNC does kind of railroad people into like, no, this is what we're doing. We're not going to have a debate. You're not even going to get on the stage. People aren't going to hear from you. It's Biden all the way. And that puts like there was Marianne Williamson, Cornel West, Dean Phillips. I know those were the three, and then there's the No Labels Party with Andrew Yang, and some Chris Christie said he was looking at them. He may vote that way if it keeps going. So it's yeah, man.
So it looks like there's currently 4 candidates in their primary process.
Oh, the
And
Democratic.
it looks like, and the Libertarians.
Oh, okay. Because
And the leader is a gentleman named Chase Russell Oliver.
is he going to be on the ballot actually? Because that was that's the
They
problem.
have their own primary process they're going through to elect their
Okay,
candidates.
because
So,
I was going to say like
so there's Chase Oliver, Michael Rechtenwald,
you like hopefully
Mike
that's right. What is that?
Termott, and Joseph Smith.
Oh,
Or no, sorry, not Joseph Smith. I said that wrong. Sorry, Joshua Smith.
oh, you're fine. I was like the Mormon guy's back. He's back. He's running as a libertarian. Yeah, man. I mean, is there anything, looking over these two things I sent you from the AP and the NBC, the one on Trump and Biden was AP. Is there something that like caught your eye where you're like, wow, I didn't remember that, or I didn't know that?
No, I've been following this all pretty closely. Probably the biggest
Yeah.
thing is the statistics with Israel, and I haven't gone through and looked at the military aid statistics with Israel.
Yeah.
Right. Our conversation last night, like you said, we could have recorded that and made the podcast.
We could have just
Probably honestly could have.
if I ever figure out how to do the audio, the thing where the audio lines show up through I could just put the thing on the pod and do that. I know it's not hard, but most podcasts do it if they have ads or something, and I need to figure out how to do that. Every time I do, go to YouTube University, it puts me down a rabbit hole of like not that, and so
What do you want to do?
when you see like the audio levels go up and down when people are talking and you just see the line of the audio levels and then you'll have like the background of the pod, maybe I could just have a picture of both of you and I on either side and then the audio levels if we ever decide to record like an audio only episode or something, that like we could do that. So,
Yeah.
and I also have to figure out subtitles on YouTube because that's just another way people, I've watched subtitles before if I'm doing something else and whatever. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the thing with, yeah, I mean, for me, the Fannie Willis thing with Trump, we talked about it offline. She's doing the election interference in Georgia. It is bad. It is bad what she did. I don't think it's to the level of some impropriety with the case. I don't think she was mishandling the case.
If what she's saying in her defense, then correct. There is no impropriety in the case. If she is lying, of which she has a very deep level of motivation to be lying.
Yeah.
So if she is, then that is improper. It doesn't diminish her case, but it does justify removing her because it's extremely poor judgment on her behalf.
And then and then again with the delay, it doesn't matter who's going to take up the case after that. It just matters that it's being delayed. So it's, you know what I mean? It's to Trump, it is of no contest who is who is the Fulton County DA. It just matters. Right. Hey, I don't got to worry about it until maybe I'm president. And then,
if I win the election, I'm great. If he loses the election, he's going to jail.
Yeah.
He will probably be pardoned by whomever gets elected because that's what they do. But he will go to jail if he loses the election.
I think you and I have talked about that too. The idea that I want someone not to pardon him. And everybody's like, well, it's bedlam. Then you could just go after somebody for anything. It's like, no, if they broke the law, then you could go after them. You know what I mean? There's got to be a line. It's like,
I hate that argument. We keep hearing it from both sides of the aisle and stuff. Right now, it's heavily coming from conservatives, but it's like, that's BS. Like, if Trump gets convicted of what he did, he deserves to go to jail.
Yeah.
If Biden did something at the same scale, he would deserve to go to jail.
I mean, the Biden, the Hunter Biden laptop thing, I mean, that's kind of imploding. I don't know if you heard about that, but their star witness that was like an informant, he lied to the FBI. They found out he purposely lied, and so the person that was like using him in the case is now suing him for
Defamation,
perjury, I think.
perjury.
Yeah, because he
Yeah, not
perjured himself.
defamation. Perjury.
And
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, so this whole thing I've seen on Fox News with these conservatives going, I mean, what's his name? Chris Hayes, he's on, I think, NBC. He has a nightly show called All In, and I just watched a clip and they did a super cut of all the Fox News people going, hey, this informant is rock solid. He's never wrong, whatever. And now the lawyer that was using him to bring charges against Hunter Biden is like, hey, you can't perjure yourself, and now I'm going to sue you. You know, I'm going to bring perjury charges against you. It's like, well, that means that that's not good, you know, like, so, yeah.
Yep. No, it's look, they're all corrupt. And what everything going on with Hunter Biden, right? I said this with Trump. I'll say it with Biden. Where there's smoke, there's usually fire. Not always. Sometimes it's just suspicious
Well,
behavior.
yeah.
But in this case, there's an overwhelming amount of smoke, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is a campfire loaded up with green wood at the beginning of the fire, right? Like everyone's just choking on it.
Well, they have a blanket that they're like stoking the, you know, it's like a grease fire that they're
Right.
trying to put out, and you're like, it's just getting bigger, guys. It's just getting bigger.
But you know, the same thing was true with Trump, and the same thing's true with Biden, and they're both corrupt.
Yeah.
Now, Biden will probably not get any of the attention that Trump got, primarily because he probably did a good enough job of hiding it, and there isn't enough people out to bury him like there is Trump.
Yeah.
A lot
Well,
of conservatives don't like Biden, but they just don't like Biden because he's currently president.
mhm.
Everyone on the left hates Trump and they want to punish him.
Yeah, and I mean, well, we've also talked about too. I mean, when you put yourself in the limelight like that, you're basically just putting a target on your back for people to look through all your business dealings, all your whatever. And you know, he got that fine in New York that he was
That
found.
one time in grade school, you picked your nose and you ate it on the school bus.
I didn't know you saw that. Anyway, you know, Trump had that. What is it? A $355 million fine in New York because the fraud case.
$355 million in the fraud case.
What I think is crazy too.
280 million or 380 million plus in the second defamation trial with E. Jean Carroll.
Oh, total? Oh, you mean
Yeah.
okay.
So he's appealing the E. Jean Carroll case.
Again,
He has
again.
It's 300,
I just want to point that out.
387 million, I think. It might have been 383 million was the judgment on him on that one for the second defamation case.
I'm gonna look it up
because
right now.
he can't keep his mouth shut. This is the man you want for president. Like he can't even rationally keep his mouth shut when he loses a case, so he doesn't have to pay out money. Like he has no self-control.
Yeah.
The whole reason that he is polling the way he is because he pisses off liberals, and conservatives are so sick of being talked down to and treated like children that they viscerally need to punish the left.
I think you added a digit in there. It was this came out on the end of January. Trump was ordered to pay an additional 83 million to E. Jean Carroll. I think you said 3.
Okay, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did add it.
Because at first,
so it's 83 million.
Yeah, because at first it was
plus.
Yeah, at first it was
55.
Yeah. At first it was like 10, I think, or 12. Oh, yeah, 5 or 10. And then I thought it was nutso. Wasn't it like the next day that is when he had the CNN town hall and he's like, let me tell you about E. Jean Carroll. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, if I was E. Jean Carroll, I mean, I'm sure she had her cell phone with like, you know, the screens on and she just has her like, all she's got to do is hit her lawyer's number to call her lawyer again. And she's probably just watching the town hall. I'd like to see how many minutes in is when he gave the, you know, they asked about E. Jean. It's like,
she was out with friends popping corks because she won and her lawyer called her. Her lawyer's like, guess what?
Hey, I know 10 million's a lot of money. What if I told you you could get more money? And it's crazy. I don't know why that keeps happening. It's a Discord thing. I've tried turning it off and it just keeps happening.
Oh, no. It's an Apple thing.
Oh, is it?
Because you're using your Mac and they added that in the video. I wonder if I can do it.
Oh, if you just go thumbs up, does it do? It only did
Yeah,
it did it once. I don't know if it's going to do it again.
I don't know. All right, sorry guys, we're just playing around
It's you
with
just
Apple.
you just help me solve a mystery because it keeps happening. I'm like, is it Discord? I don't know what that is. It looks like it's my phone. I can't find it. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
Like many people have said, this
it,
is again the least exciting thing
I
that's
mean,
happening.
it's getting so much coverage. You and I have talked about this a ton on this podcast. We talk about it a ton in our personal calls. Like, it actually is really engaging, right? Like, the intrigue, the anger, the frustration, right? Like, we're talking about this all the time. I
Yeah,
was thinking the other day, the best thing that could
it's
possibly happen to make Trump go away is the liberal media could just stop talking about it. If the liberal media just shut up about Trump and they didn't listen to any of his tweets and they didn't cover any of his Truth Social stuff, they just stopped talking about Trump, no one else would have any idea what was going on.
I've heard arguments on why they keep doing it. I do not know what those are. I understand what you're saying, but there was an argument on the side of
Because
like,
if he actually is a legitimate threat, people should honestly be aware of it. But the problem of it is it amplifies his voice and his message,
yeah, yeah,
right?
no, it
Like,
does, yeah.
we all got pissed off at, well, not we all, but the majority of people got
A
pissed
lot of
off
us
at
did.
Tucker Carlson. There's been all kinds of like anger in Europe and Ukraine about Tucker Carlson going out
Yeah,
and talking to Putin,
I thought it was
like, and
just
giving him a voice.
I just thought it was ineffective. I don't know if he needs to be sanctioned or anything. I think it was just like Putin going, let me tell you about Russian history. And it's like, why? And then, like you said last night,
Yeah,
like basically just owning Tucker Carlson to be like, oh, is this a real journalistic interview or is this entertainment basically or
I
something? And
got more on that, by the way. I was listening to a video this morning with Peter Zion, and he was talking about it.
yeah,
And I hadn't known this, but Tucker Carlson, in defense of himself for his coverage on Fox News during the January 6th stuff and the election run up stuff,
yeah.
um, he owned himself. His defense was, I'm not a journalist, I'm a propagandist,
Uh,
in his
uh,
own words.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's not out of the pale. I mean, he's done interviews before. He's like, have I lied before? Of course. I mean, if that helps what's happening or what I'm trying to sell, of course I'm going to lie a little bit, and you're like, okay, well, you just kind of gave the game up. Um,
Right. But people that listen to him continue to because they want to, right? This is why Goebbels was so effective in Germany, except he didn't say the quiet part out loud.
no. Well, they're in Germany during World War II. I don't think there was any
Was
quiet
it
parts. They were just saying the
was
thing.
it Goebbels? I might be getting the name wrong,
Well,
but
anyway, it was,
it was propagandist.
yeah. Well, that, like I said, in Germany in World War II, there was no quiet part. They were just saying everything out loud. They were like, they were giving speeches going, yeah, these are the Jewish people. That's the Jews. That's the problem. And everybody was like, yay, like it was like, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm sure I would have liked to see that reaction of somebody showing up to the rally, not knowing anything. And then like this slow realization of like, wait, what? No, like yay Germany, like you're showing up like we're gonna be a superpower again, and then Hitler keeps going and you're just like no, I gotta go. And you do an overhead shot, you just see that one person trying to get out of the crowd like I don't know what's going on, I don't like anything that's happening right now, please let me go home, I just want to go home. Yeah,
I'm sure there were plenty of Germans that felt that way, but the majority of them are in the crowd cheering along because they got
yeah,
wrapped up into it, right?
yeah.
Crowds are very potent drugs.
Yeah, it's not the best, man. It's again, I mean, we've said it months ago, but the thing is, Avin, we're just not excited. I'm not excited to go through this again. I'm actually excited to see
No,
if something happens to Trump though. It just seems 91 is a big number to defend yourself against to
he
like,
will get convicted. I've
yeah,
heard multiple interviews that have basically been like, there is no way he dodges all of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
An interview I was listening to recently basically said that what's going on right now with the hush money payments case, even though that those are felony charges or some of them are felony charges, like
yeah,
basically, even the guy there is like, look, I'm no fan of Trump. I don't want him as president, but like, even from myself not being a Trump supporter, I'm looking at that going, man, these are some pretty flimsy charges, right? Like, this is really politically motivated.
yeah,
It's kind of obvious, right?
yeah. It seems like you'd have to explain
And
a
a lot
lot to a
of
jury. It's a lot explained
Right.
instead of just going, "Hey, he committed fraud." Everybody's like, "I kind of know what fraud is. How bad is the fraud?" This is like, okay, so this is a novel reading of this one thing. Let me lay this out, and it's like that's a little much, man. Like, I don't know if you're gonna be
Yeah.
able to convince a jury.
Alvin Bragg's entire case on making these felony charges all stems on like connecting all of the fake payments back to something else that technically elevates it to a felony, but really isn't, right? So, in my opinion, I told you last night, I really feel like Trump is going to lose the case, but none of them are going to be felonies, and he'll probably have some fines he has to pay.
Yeah.
And woo woo, he'll come out of that bragging that he
Well,
won, and
I
everyone will
mean,
be like, "Bragg lost."
to be honest, like the amount that you just laid out, the 400, 355 and 83, that's 430 some odd million, right?
8 million,
Yeah,
438 million.
430 million.
And that money's coming from the PACs, folks. If you're watching this and you are pro Trump and you are giving your money to Trump, you are not supporting his reelection
Yeah,
campaign.
you're paying
You
for
are
his.
not paying for
Yeah,
ads. You are not paying for any of that. This is not going into fighting Biden. You're paying for his legal bills.
there is an outside argument on the far, well, not the far right because those people are Nazis, but the right where they say like this is helping his reelection campaign because he needs to fight off these witch hunts to deliver us from. But that's like, Evan, let me give you a nerd lesson. So in games, there's an
Okay.
active there in some games in a reload, there's an active reload where you see a bar and then you see like
Oh,
a thing
okay.
going back and forth like this, and there's like a highlighted section in the middle. And if you hit it in
Oh,
that highlighted section, you get an automatic clip reload like Gears of War and stuff like that. That's basically I think where Trump's arguments are hitting. People are just watching this bar go back and forth and they're like, there it is. There, that's the narrow thing that I'm reading this through, is I can't anymore. It's rough too. I mean, I don't know, you probably run into it a little bit more about like talking to people at church about it, but it's got to be kind of tiring to be like, oh, especially when Trump starts talking about the election being stolen again. It's like, guys, that
no,
was
we don't talk politics at church very much.
you're
We're
like
we're usually
you're like
there for church.
you're like, thank God. It's
So
it's not the
yeah,
after, when you guys are having snacks afterwards talking, it's like, yeah, you just want to make sure that you're not yeah, you're like, I don't want to go through this. Like,
no, no, we're not. It's not even that, right? We're just we're talking about the sermon. We're checking in with each other. How's
yeah.
your week, right? We don't bring up politics at church.
I think the thing I
At least
realized,
at my church, we don't.
I think I told you this, it does the thing where I was talking to a guy at work and I told him I got a flu shot and he started talking about how you don't need the flu shot, and I really got this sense of like, oh no. And I was like, I don't know, I it made me feel, or actually I didn't, I was saying I didn't get it. And he goes, yeah, you don't need to. And I was like, but I had the flu and I was contagious for a week. Like that's what the flu shot does. And he's like, well, you don't need any of that. I don't want to be bothered. And I was like, I don't want to get into this. And there was another coworker of mine that said something about, I had to ride with him one morning and he ranted about liberals. He's like, those dumb liberals. And I was like, I'm a dumb liberal. And he goes, what? You don't look like a liberal. I'm like, well, what are we supposed to look like? I don't know. What does that mean? He goes, really? And then it's always the crazy things. You want, you know, he did the trans. He goes, you want them to do this and force this? I'm like, force? What are you talking about? Like, no, like, and he goes, man, I didn't know you were a liberal. And I'm like, yeah, I don't like. Do we have or do liberals have more hair? I don't know what you were thinking of when you, like, we all kind of, it's all types of people, man. I don't know. I didn't think you were going to go on this rant on the way up to Seattle or whatever. Like, I didn't.
Should have turned it around and be like, I didn't know you were a racist.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't.
And to be like, what?
Yeah.
That's just.
Yeah.
And then turn around and be like, this is my point.
Yeah. It's like, well, I'm not, blah, blah, whatever. I don't know. We've said many times, it's tiring. I wish I could unplug a little bit, but I've been reading this because I do care. I don't
Right.
know. Next episode, we'll probably have more updates with Trump's legal woes because right
Right.
before this, I think it was Thursday, he got fined the $355 million.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that
And
was yesterday.
oh yeah, and so
No, it wasn't Thursday.
anyway, it was very close to the recording of this, and we'll probably find out about his immunity thing if it's going to the Supreme Court, or they just say, hey, we're going to stay the lower
Right.
court's
So
ruling or whatever.
earlier in the week, Trump filed his appeal to the Supreme Court, basically asking them to stay the case until he can appeal it, and then the immunity case specifically, is he immune criminally,
Yeah.
not civilly, criminally.
And then
And then John Roberts, yeah, Chief Justice John Roberts went back to DOJ and was like, hey, Jack Smith, like, what's your justification for this? And Jack Smith basically came back like the next day. Here's my thing.
yeah,
Let's move forward.
and it took Trump like a week to write a motion or whatever they were writing. I don't know.
It was about.
Yeah, so I think maybe next month we'll probably just do a like Trump update, because I think there'll be more to update. Maybe we'll get the total number of fines he's got. Maybe there'll be, some more. I'm really looking forward to the immunity Supreme Court thing. So.
Well, that's the next big update, right? For me personally, like I've said, I think the big case is the documents case.
Yeah.
That is the one that is the most damning. I think that's the one where when the information actually comes out, and people that are on the right that start following the case because they really actually are curious and they start to actually hear the charges. One of two things is going to happen. Conservative media isn't going to cover it at all.
Which could
or conservative media will actually start to cover what's going on in there, because you can't ignore your guy.
Yeah.
Like on trial for this. And one way or the other, that is going to erode at his base, because people are going to realize that he lied. Now, it's not going to erode his entire base, but it is going to. It's going to eat away at the edges of his numbers.
Well, it's just like the thing going on with Biden right now in the Middle East. On the edges where he won, those are falling away because of the continued whatever's going on in the Middle East, and Biden's either response or not response, or his non-response. Right. And so that could happen with Trump if these legal things keep setting up. Like you said, the edges could start falling away, And
this will be 2024, if it continues in the direction it's going, is going to be the stay-home election.
I was thinking Disco Stew, and people are like, if these trends continue, hey, Disco Stew from The Simpsons, when he had a chart and he talked about records or something. And yeah, every time someone's like, if these trends continue, I'm like, hey.
If we keep moving in the direction we're moving in this election, sorry, now I'm lost in Simpsons. I think this will be the stay-home election. I think a lot of conservatives and independents are particularly... I think a lot of independents are not moved by either candidate, and they'll probably sit at home.
Yep.
I think a lot of conservatives are not moved by Donald Trump and will probably sit at home, numerically, not percentage-wise. And I think a lot of liberals are not supporting Biden and are disappointed in Biden and aren't going to come out and vote.
Right.
And so, in the last election, we had record turnout in 2020. I think this election... we'll probably have one of our lowest voter turnouts, because people are just not motivated to come out.
Yeah, that's something you bring that up.
Reality is both of them needs their people to come out. And I just think people are going to be like, I can't support Biden. There's no way in hell I'm voting for Trump.
Yeah,
I'm just going to stay home.
Yeah, that's interesting you bring that up. I would like to see those numbers. And somebody, there's these real political nerds out there, these wonks, which I think sounds like a slur. But anyway, the politic wonks, the people that read those charts, that guy, I think it's CNN, where he's got the touch screen and he's like all into the numbers and he taps it and zooms in. It's like, see this county right here? See that? And he'll like circle, and he's going to be the one to be like, here's a voter turnout with these people, and here's a voter turnout with these, this group of people. And it will be interesting to see that breakdown next year. So before we wrap up, is there anything you want to plug, Avin, before we leave? I guess is this like the election year of the shrug? I guess is that's what we're going into, the year of the shrug for elections. So, yeah.
I think the year of the shrug, that might be a good way to word it. But things I'd like to promote, right? Obviously, check out Joe's other podcast, Gaming with Grief. Does game reviews related to processing and dealing with grief and grief in the games. I do. Joe can speak more specifically to that. And then also I have my own YouTube channel separately, Your Agent Guide, where I talk about tips and tricks for buying real estate, things you should know about purchasing a home, selling a home.
Are you
Haven't had any videos in a while, but the content that's there is still largely relevant.
are you gonna do any new videos, or are you?
I will be. I don't have anything currently in the pipeline, so I can't say
Mm,
when.
mm. Also, if you like to hear Avin and I occasionally have him on Game with Grief because unfortunately,
Mm.
there's the 2023 and 2024 were horrible years in game development. A lot of people got laid off. There was even more
Mm.
news about it. I don't know if you heard of the Embracer Group. They were like an investment
Mm.
firm that Saudi backed money. They lost a $2 billion infusion of cash. That's why they've had to like lay people off and close studios. And in fact, they just released a statement after they closed studios and laid people off. They're like, our number one thing is shareholders.
Yeah.
There was a joke at the Dice Awards, which is like the game developer, 4 developers, 2 developers. They give people best animation. People that know what they're doing give awards to other game developers. And there was a joke by
Right.
the host Greg Miller that said the 2 words that everybody hates in the business. I think one of them was, I know the second joke. The first joke was like, hey, this isn't fun. Basically, the game we're playing, it isn't fun. And the second worst thing you hear in game development is, hey, Embracer Group's here. And that got a big laugh through the audience because Embracer is now like the most hated. Because what happened was years ago, Embracer was buying up all these studios, and people are like, "What's their plan?" Well, they're an investment firm, so they're investing. But then they started
Yeah.
releasing games, and they started getting 6s and 5s, and you don't build a game company by middle of the road games. And so then they started selling stuff off. They lost the investment of money. That is a horrible YouTube video if you want to watch that. The head of Embracer looked like he had been up all night. His eyes were all bloodshot. And he said, we fell through a lot of money that we were expecting. And he had to sit there to the shareholders and explain that to them in a live video, which it's like that Simpsons, to bring it back to the Simpsons. It's like, I can see the moment his heart broke, like in the video, because he's talking about we didn't get the 2 million. But I have Avin on there occasionally. If you also like tabletop gaming, you can check out on the 1st and 15th. I've started releasing episodes of the tabletop show we've been doing there. I think we're in episode 4 or 5 just released, and videos up too. So if you want to see it, that's on YouTube. And again, it comes out on the 1st and 15th. So I think Avin plugged everything that I was going to plug mostly. I plugged everything I kind of
I only
wanted
plugged
to.
one, man. You plugged two.
I plugged a lot of stuff. I took all the plugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that's it. I guess next month, yeah, we'll probably give everybody a Trump update. We will talk to everybody next month.